All right, Shalom, Shalom. It's Brother Tazadak, Hero Israel. I'd like to start off by giving all honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Kakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Today we're going to go into Numbers chapter 24, going into the Hebrew. As the Lord willing, you're edified, giving all honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Kakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Let's get right into it. Numbers chapter 24, verse 1, and it reads, Wayira'ah Balaam Kaya Tawab Ba'ayanya, meaning, and he saw Balaam because it was good in the eyes of the Lord, Yahweh, to bless to Israel. La Barak Atha Yasha'ala. Wala'a Halak Ka Payam Ba Payam, and did not go, which would read according to the time upon time, right? Because that word payam actually means a stroke, right? In the sense of, for example, let's see. A good example would be like a car engine, which have the pistons, right, that go up and down, right? So they're constantly one stroke upon another, as that gas is combusting, right? You're gonna have, right, that effect, the effect of the pistons being moved by the combustion, right? Which is in the piston, right? So that would be, very fast strokes, which causes the engine to move, right? So really, it reads like stroke upon stroke, right? But this is in a non-literal sense, in a way to say, in previous times, right? Because it's saying according to the time upon time, right? Which, let's say you strike a nail twice, right? You strike it first and then second, but the first time you stroke it, right? That was the previous time, right? Which would be, in a sense, strike upon strike. But here it's saying according to the time in its time, really saying, right? Right, like stroke upon stroke, right? But that's just another way to say on the previous occasion, right? So it says, Wala'ah halak ka pa'im ba pa'im, and ye have not went like in previous occasions, right? La Quara'ath Nachashim, to search for omens, right? Because that word Nachash means to divine, or it means an omen, right? To search for an omen, right? Which is what Laban did, right? He noticed that the Lord blessed his substance, which Jacob was looking after, right? And he observed these things, right? Right. So he why? Because he was an idolater, right? He right, his land was Mesopotamia, right? Which is today modern day Iraq, Turkey, all these people, what they do, they worship the skies, they're idolaters, filthy idolaters, right? Prognosticators, um, whisperers, right? All of that goes back to Mesopotamia, right? The sons, through the five sons of Shem, right? Which today would be Elamites, Arabs, right? They're all mingled there amongst, right? These other sons of Shem, right? Which today they just call themselves Arabs, which just means mixed, right? So these people were wicked, which is why Abraham was called out of his land, right? Because, right, uh, um, then people were just off, right? And they always been off because the Lord made them that way, right? But anyways, this is what Balaam was doing, right? It says he searched. He did not do like the previous times to search for omens. Wayeshath al Hamadabar, right? And he placed toward the wilderness his face. Panyawa. Wayesha'a Balaam Atha Ayan Yawa, right? And he lifted up Balaam to his eyes, and he saw to Israel. Wayera'a Atha Yasha'ala, right? Shakan La Shabbat Yahweh, right? Dwelling according to their tribes. Watahaya Elayawa, right? And it came to pass upon him, Elayawa, came the spirit of the powers, right? Rakha Alahayim, right? Wayesha'a Mashalwa, and he lifted up a proverb, and he said, Waya Abar Naam, right? And he said, thus has uttered Balaam, the son of Beor, Banawa Bayar, Wa Naam Hagabar Shatham, and thus utters he that prevailed, because Aha means he, Gabar means warrior, but it also means to prevail. Salakia. And it says, so he that prevailed, right, as in the Lord prevailed upon him, right, because he put, right, he led him to Balak. He led him out of the land of his people, right, in order to what? For this account to take place, right, and ultimately for this account to be recorded, right? So as the Spirit came upon him, it overtook him, right? Which is why I said, and the utterances of he that prevailed, meaning the Lord prevailed, because, right, the Lord put the Spirit upon him, right, to go with Balak, right, so he can attempt to curse Israel, but he couldn't, right? Because that's just, right, and that's why it says that, right? Meaning, Shatham, meaning to place, right? Which is you can compare it with Sham, right? Meaning to place something, or Yathan, right? The root is Shayath or Shawath. It just means to place, right? So it says that placed the eye, Ha'ayan, right? Which literally, it just means, right? He gave him insight, right? Of these things, right? Naam, Shammai, Amaria, Allah, uttering the report of the utterances of God to say Salakia Ashar, which envisioned Ma Chazah, right? Chazah means vision or to envision something, right? Or to get a vision, right? Or to see a vision, right? But it just means to envision, right? Um, so it says, utters the report of the utterances of God or the sayings of God, which envision, right? Meaning he was given a vision, right? Destruction, shadia, right? Because that word shad, it means devil, destroy, right? Um, uh, which is why in Genesis it said, right? Abraham called on Allah Shaddai, right? Which means demon-like power, but also destroying power, right? Um, so it says Yah Chazah Nepal, right? Meaning he envisioned falling, right? As in, right, he fell into a trance-like state, right? So he probably, right, the spirit came upon him and he started prophesying, right? But as he was seeing that vision in his mind, he probably, you know, he could have been, falling down a black hole, you know, and then, in the vision, right? And then he just falls into the earth and it's pitch black, but then he sees the visions of destruction, right? Which is what is going to be spoken of in this chapter, right? So it could be either or, scriptures say, we prophesy in part, we know in part, right? Wagalia, um, Ayan, Ayan Yum, and having and uncovered the eyes, right? Meaning, right, Balaam was given a vision, right? His eyes were uncovered, meaning he was given the understanding, right, and the ability to see these things, right, and the ability to speak it, right. Ma matabwa ahaliaka, meaning how good are your tents, O Jacob, Yaiquab, and your dwellings, or Salakia, your dwellings, O Israel, Mashakan Tayaka, which really should read your tabernacles, O Israel, right? Because that word Mashakan means tabernacle, right? So it says, your tabernacles, O Israel, right? Yasha'Allah. Ka Nakolium, Natayawa, meaning like the brooks that are inclined, and like, what is it? Like the gardens, Ka Ganath, right? Because that word God means garden, right? Like the gardens beside it, Elia, or Salakia, beside the rivers, beside a river, Elia, Nahar, Ka Aholium, right? Like the tents, Salakia, like aloes, because that word ahol also, not only does it mean tent, but it means aloe, like the actual plant, right? Planted Natai of the Lord Yahweh, uh, like the cedars, Ka Arazium, upon the waters, Alaya Mayim, right? So it says, like the brooks, right? That that turn like the gardens beside the river, right? Um, like the aloes that are planted of the Lord, right? Like cedars upon uh beside the waters, right? So he's just praising the nation of Israel, right? In the sense that, we were the last nation established, right? We're the youngest nation, right? But we're going to be the greatest, right? In the kingdom of heaven, right? Which is why the Lord ordained the law to be given by Moses, right? Unto the children of Israel, which contains prophecies, right? Like these, Deuteronomy, right? And so on and so forth, right? So it's not just what the prophets, the visions they saw, right? It's not just the accounts, right? The Gospels, the visions of John the Revelator, right? You can also you read prophecies throughout the whole book, right? If you have the understanding, right? Um, Numbers 24:7, Yazal Mayam, right? Meaning they will drip. The word Zal means drip. Their waters from their buckets, Madal Yahweh, and their seed, Wazarai Wa, will be upon waters many, Balmayim Rabium, right? Basically saying Israel was scattered everywhere, right? And we mingled within the nations as well, right? Which is why, you have the actual bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in China, Japan, right? Um, Places like Indonesia, you have a remnant there, right? But even here in America, Babylon the Great, which is where the majority of the remnant will be gathered from, right? Even here, right? Uh, you may look, like an Edomite, whatever the case may be. The point is, we're scattered everywhere, right? Which is why the book of Revelation says that out every nation, tongue, tribe, that's talking about the actual bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? Which today are the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans, right? But the point is, this lines up with what the book of Revelation says about the great multitude, right? Because we were scattered everywhere, right? And eventually lost the knowledge and understanding of our customs, right? So it says, Wayaram Ma Agag, and he will be lifted up, right? Ma meaning of, Agag just means exalted, right? Malakwa, right? His rulership. So it just says, um, right? And Slakia, and he will be lifted up, exalted, right? His rulership, because Malak means king, but it also means to rule, right? Or a rulership, right? Which is talking about Yahushai, right? Because he's going to be exalted. And the translation says that their ruler should rise above Agag, right? but that's not what it's talking about, right? Because Agag was an Amalekite king, right? And so if you're comparing that and saying that there was no other rulership greater than Agag, right? Um, that's not necessarily true, right? Because Solomon, um, right, was to have a rulership, right, which was remembered throughout time, right? Even to today, Solomon is notable in all parts of the world, right? But I mean, I guess you could say that Agag, right? Because really, in these latter days, what Amalek is the one really behind the scenes, pushing this all of this deception, right? The upper echelons, the small hats, the Rothschilds, right? Which they're all Edomites, but Amalek really symbolizes the chief head of Esau, right? Because they're the ones giving contracts, they're the ones, right, that had their hand in the banking systems early throughout time, right? They established things like central banking, right, et cetera, right? So yeah, you could say that, right? That is talking about Agag, which is really a notable king of Amalek, right? But it's also, however way you put it, it's still saying that Yahushai, his dominion is going to be exalted above even what these 1% uh, uh, um, uh, these chief heads of Amalek, right? Which are the small hats, right? So however way you put it, it's still comparing Yahushai, right, with Esau, which is really, right, Esau's world and Jacob's world, right? So you could say that, right? Um, and he will be exalted or lifted up from Agag, meaning above Agag, right? Which was a chief king of Amalek, right? His rulership, right? Wata Nasha'a Malakathwa, right? And will be lifted up his kingdom, right? It's talking about Yahushai, right? Because the reason why it says, right, he's going to be, right, higher than Agag, right, is because, right, the greatest thing in Esau's time, this time, for example, um, the potency, right, of medicine, right, food, right, access. Esau only has, when you compare it with the Lord's creation, the whole creation, which we will receive, Esau really only has 2% of the natural resources, of the understanding of what is in the seas, of, right, what's beyond the firmament, right, the riches of the earth, right, the elements. Esau has only been given maybe 2 or 3% of the Lord, uh, uh, out of the Lord's whole creation, right? But we're gonna receive the 100%, right? It's not just gonna be confined to the earth. It's gonna be the whole, what Esau calls galaxies, right? So really, you know, that's really kind of going into that, right? Numbers 24 and 8. um, Allah Mataza Ya'awa Ma Matazarium, meaning God who brought them out from Egypt, right? Uh, Kata Ipath Ra'am, meaning like 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 the weariness of a wild ox, right? Because again, that's just talking about, right, the great things that the Lord did, the great toils that Israel had to go through in Egypt, right? And really, that's happening in these latter days as well, right? Because we have to go through straits, we have to go, right, through weariness, right? Like Paul the Apostle said, right, in stripes and in burnings, right? Uh, uh, we endured, right? So that's why it says, like the weariness of a wild ox, right? Because the Lord, right, put Israel through that, right? So that, right, they may look back on it and remember, right, that the Lord is, right, their salvation, right, their shield, right, and, right, as a memorial unto us, right, like the scriptures say, right, these are things written for our understanding, right? So that's what it goes into, right? Like the weariness of a wild ox, right? Because we had to go, right, through hard bondage, right? And what the Lord did, you read about that in the Book of Wisdom of Solomon, right? He rewarded unto them as unto the Egyptians as they did unto the children of Israel, right? Because they sought to slay the firstborn, right? So what did the Lord do? And they actually did, right? The Egyptians did that, right? They slayed the children, the firstborn, right? So what did the Lord say? You have shed blood. I'm gonna give you blood to drink, right? So this is the Lord, right? Destroyed all firstborn in the day that the children of Israel were brought out of Egypt, right? So this is just going into the toils of Israel and the great things that the Lord did, right? Which it says lawa, right? As in unto them, right? Ya akal gawayim tazaryawa, meaning they will eat, right? They will devour or consume, right? They will consume nations, their distressors, right? Because that word tazar means to distress, right? In other instances, it means to defend, right? That word tazar itself, it means straits, right? Or in a narrow place, right? Tazawar, it also means rock. It's used in a variety of applications, right? Because ultimately, right, when Israel gets the kingdom of heaven, right, we're gonna multiply. So we're gonna take, right, we're gonna, right, be more numerous than all the nations of the earth, right? So much that, you know, um, we're gonna take these other nations, their women, and they're gonna bear Israelite children, right? So we're gonna consume them in that way, right? And ultimately, by being multiplied, right, like the Lord promised unto Abraham, like the stars of heaven, right, which cannot be numbered, right? Um, so it says, Wa itazamat yaham, right? Um, Meaning, and their bones, right? Yagaram, they will pile up, right? Which the word itazam means bone, right? It means mighty, right? It also means, for example, ba itazam, yawam is another way to say self same day, right? Or in that same day, right? Yagaram, meaning they will pile up, because that word garam, it just means, right, to heap up, to pile up, right? That's in the sense um, that as Israel is living forever in the kingdom of heaven, right? Us, our children, right? Um, we're gonna surpass the years of the heathens, right? So as they reach maybe 80, 100, because the earth is gonna be replenished in that time, right? They're gonna have, they're gonna bury themselves, throughout their years, throughout their generations, right? And it's just, right, it's going to accumulate, right? And as they're doing that, they're going to see us, and we're we're still going to be, right? We're not going to age, right? We're literally going to outlive every single one of their generations, and they're just going to be replenished back on the earth continuously, right? Every generation, right? Every fourth generation, right? That's what it's talking about, right? Their bones, um, right? So it doesn't say they're gonna crush their bones. It just says their bones, uh, um, they will pile up, right? So we're gonna outlive their generations. They're gonna, they're gonna pass away, go into the spirit world, come back down. They're not gonna remember their past life, right? And they're gonna keep seeing us, right? But they're not going to realize, oh, okay, this is who I served 4 generations ago, right? They're not going to remember none of that, right? They're just going to keep coming down on the earth, right, every 4 generation, and they're going to say, oh, okay, these are the ones that are ruling the earth, but they're not going to remember their past life. So that's what it's talking about, right? Wa chatazaya wa ya machatazah, right? Meaning, and their arrows, right? Chatazaya means arrows. Um, um, they will smite, right? Um, ya machatazah, right? Because that word ma meaning of, chatazah, right? Machatazah just means, right, to smite, right? Which is, you can roughly translate it as of, ma meaning of, chatazah of divide, right? As in when an arrow strikes the target, it divides that it pierces the surface, so it divides it, of dividing, right? Um, so it says, and with their arrows they will smite, right? That just goes into the fact that we're gonna rule over the heathens, right? It's not really too deep when it comes to that, right? Just basically, they're gonna go off, and we're gonna correct them, right? And let's see. And I guess you could say that's talking about the missiles as well, right? Because they're gonna, like it says in Second Esdras, they're gonna fall upon their own sword. Esau, that is, right? He's gonna fall upon his own sword. He made these weapons, right? these weapons of war, right? So he's going to use them, right? All the heathens as a whole, they're going to use them against each other in Armageddon, right? So yeah, and their arrows will smite them, right? They're going to destroy themselves, right? But they're not going to get to that because the chariots are going to, gather, right, in the Middle East, right? And they're going to go and fight the Lord and the angels, right? Like it says in Revelation chapter 12, right? Numbers 24:9. Karai Shakab Ka Araya, meaning that word karai means to stoop, right? To stoop down, right? Um, in this sense, Salakia. So when you stoop down, say you drop a pen, right? When you stoop down, you're bending your knees, right? And you're reaching toward the ground. That's what karai means, to stoop down, right? Shakab Ka Araya, meaning stooping down, to lie down. Shakab means lie down, right? Like a lion. Ka Araya. Um, Waka Labaya, and like a young lion, um, who will raise them up, right? Maya Yakwayam Nawa, right? The word Maya means who, right? Um, right? And the Lord is going to raise us up, right? Um, right? Because Genesis 49 says what? And we'll get that in a minute. It speaks about the old lion and the young lion, right? Which you have, right? Um, that represents Israel as a whole, right? Being subjugated, right? In past times, right? Under Esau, right? Crouching, being forced to lie down, right? As in under the authority of Esau, right? And like a young lion, the young lion is what? Those that are preaching his word, right? Like scriptures say, I believe that's Psalms chapter 8, right? Out of the mouth of babes, thou hast ordained strength, right? That's talking about, right? Like it says in the book of Malachi, turn the heart of the fathers unto the children, and the children unto the fathers. Because we have, right, fathers in this thing that brought us into the understanding, right? Starting with Abba Bivens, right? The elders and apostles of Great Millstone. We received according to each individual's talent. One received 1 talent, 5 talents, right? Our job is to multiply the talents, right? So we have fathers in this thing. The book of Isaiah says the strangers will be joined unto them, meaning those that are not in truth will receive the understanding. They're going to join themselves unto the teachers, right? And there's other precepts that go into that, right? But that lion crouching, lying down is Israel, right? Being subjugated. The young lion, which it says, who will raise them up, right? Is us, Lord willing, right? Starting with the teachers, right? Which will be, and in that time we'll find out, the 144,000, right? You have the 144,000, you have the great multitude, right? You have the teachers, and you have those that receive the understanding, right? But we humbly call ourselves of the hopeful elect, right? Hopefully we can even just be of the great multitude, which is why we do the work, right? For in order that we receive mercy in that day, like it says in the book of Malachi, what in that day I will gather up my jewels and spare him as one that spareth his own son, right? So that is the young lion, right? Those preaching his word, right? Because the old lion, right, represents those the older individuals, right, that are not in this truth, right? They're still in Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, all kinds of folly, right? They're still following doctrines of devils, commandments of men. So the point is that the old lion, right, it even represents the older generation that has failed us. Not our teachers, because, our teachers are young. They come in all ages, right? Young and old, right? Um, so yeah, that's what it represents. Israel subjugated, and Israel, which is the remnant, right, rising up, right? Ma Barak Yakah, right? Um, um, Salakia, um, meaning uh, of, meaning Ma Barak Yakah, right? Meaning who blesses thee will be blessed, right? But it really should read, of blessing thee will be blessed, right? And uh, um, uh, cursing thee will be cursed, right? So it says, Ma Barak Yakah, Barakah, right? Meaning, they that bless thee will be blessed, and they that curse thee will be cursed. Wa Arar Yakah, Arar, right? Yakar Ap Balak Al Balam, and he waxed hot the anger of Balak to Balaam. Wayes Sapqua, or Salakia, Wayes Sapak, right? Meaning to slap or to clap, mainly to slap, right? You can slap your hands together, right? You can actually slap somebody, right? So it says, and he slapped to his palms together, Atha Kapyawa, and he said Balak to Balaam, Waya Amar Balak al Balaam, Laquab Ayabya, right? To hollow out my enemies I have called thee, right? Quara'a Thayaka, right? Because Quara'a means to call, right? Or to read. Thaya means, the Tha means you. The Ya at the end makes it I, right? The Ka means unto thee. So it says, right, I have basically saying, I have called thee, right? As in, to separate them unto a curse, to consecrate them, right, unto destruction, to separate them unto destruction. You can read it either way, right? But really it just reads, to hollow out my enemies, right? I call thee Wahana Barakath, and behold, surely, and you have blessed, surely you have blessed this 3 times. Barakath, Barak, Za, Shalash, Payamyam, right? But really it should read, you have blessed and blessing this 3 times, right? But I just simplified it, that's just a simplified way to read it. If you're reading a translation out loud, Wa'aitha Barach Laka, and now flee through you to your place. al makwam ka. That word barak means bars, as in bars of a door, right? To flee through, right? Because you put a door bar through the door, right? So it goes through a latchet, right? Which signifies one that flees, right? For example, you flee within a group of people, you're like a bar being placed through a door, right? That is what it signifies, right? So it says, and now flee you to your place, right? I have said, Amarathia, Kabad, Akabad Ka, surely I would have honored thee, right? But really it reads, honoring, I would have honored thee, right? Or just roughly, it just says, honor, I honor thee, right? But that is what it's saying. Surely I would have honored thee, right? Wahana, and behold, right? Manai ka, Yahweh, right? The Lord has refrained thee from honor, right? Because that word manai means to refrain, right? Or to withhold, right? Makabad, right? Waya Amar Balam al Balak, right? Because that word kabad means honor, right? Glory, right? As the glory of the Lord appeared, right? Or right, in the sense of a glorification. It also means heavy, right? That's what it means, right? Um, Waya Amar Balam al Balak, and he said Balaam to Balak, is it not Halah even, right? Gum to your messengers, al Malaak Yaka, um, which you sent, Ashar Shalachta unto me, al Yah, I have spoken to say, the Barathia la Amar, I'm Yathan la Yah, Balak, if he gives unto me Balak the fullness of his house, Malah Bayathwa, of silver and gold, Kasab Wazahab, La'ah, I will call La'ibar, I will not, Slakia, I am not able uh, to go beyond to the mouth of the Lord, right? Atha Payah Yahweh, right? To do good or evil. La Aishath uh, Tawaba Awa Raya, right? Malabia Ashar Yadabar, right? Um, Malabia meaning from my heart or from my mind, right? Because the Lord didn't command Balaam to speak according to what his mind was, his thoughts. He said, I will put my word in your mouth and that you shall speak, right? Ashar Yadabar, Yahweh, right? Which he will speak the Lord, right? Um, to that I will speak. Athawa Adabar, right? So essentially it says, if he gives unto me Balaam or Balak the fullness of his house, gold and silver, I am not able to go beyond the mouth of the Lord to do good or evil, right? Of my mind, right? As in on my own accord, right? That which he will speak the Lord unto that I will speak, right? Wa Aitha, Hananya, Halak, and now behold I go to my people, Laamya, for thus Laka, um, Aya, Aitazaka, I will counsel thee, right? Meaning Aitaza, Tazaha, that means counsel. That's the root word. So he's saying, I will counsel thee, right? Give thee counsel, unto which they will do the people this. Ashar, Ya Aisha, Ha'im, Hazah, um, to your people, La'im Ka, right? In the latter days, Ba Ahariath, Ha Yamayim, right? Wayasha'a, Mashalwa, and he lifted up this proverb, and he said, Waya Amar, Naam, Balam, Banawa, Bayar, utters Balaam, the son of Beor, and utters he that prevailed to place the eye, right? Wa Naam, Ha Gabar, Shatham, Ha Ayan, right? As in, and utters he that prevailed, right? To give me the vision, right? So Balaam was speaking in the third person, right? The Lord put his spirit on him, right? And he started prophesying again, right? Which is let's see, starting at verse 14, right? But really, you could say he started prophesying at verse 15, right? When he said, right here where it says, Why Amar Naam, right? Balaam the son of Beor, right? Let's see. Ara'a Nawa, right? I will see them, and not now. Wala'a Aitha, Ashar Nawa, meaning, or Slake, Ashawar Nawa, meaning meaning I, Shawar means to search. So he's saying, I will see them and not now. I will search them, right? And not near or nearby. Wala'a Korab, in the way, Darak, Kawakab, a star from Jacob, Ma Yaikwab, meaning a star will be from Jacob, right? Wakwam Shabbat, that star is Yahushai, right? Of the tribe of Judah, right? Through the lineage of King David, right? Like it says in the book of Revelation, I am the root and the offspring of David. Literally, that's talking about a bloodline, right? Which is of the Messiah, right? Which died, right? Was given power, right? Over that in the heavens, right? To unseal the book, the seven seals, right? So when that happened, right, he received, right, the ability, right, to open up the understanding unto Israel, right? Which is why it was given to John the Revelator, right? So Yahushua had to fulfill a duty, right? Be a living sacrifice for the children of Israel, right? He came to the earth to do his ministry in the form of a man, right? In order to be consecrated, right, for the Lord's purpose, right? So he was delivered up, right? Became a living sacrifice, right? And now we have propitiation for sin through him, right? But also the purpose was for him, right, to be made like unto his brethren, like it says in the book of Hebrews, right? So he had to come on the earth, right? He had to take on the form of man, right? Conquer the flesh, right? Which is what we're doing now, right? Conquering the flesh, striving, right? Uh, um, to give a good understanding, at the same time enduring, right? The human condition, right? Which you have a term, human condition. It means different things, but I'm talking about dealing with the flesh, dealing with not being perfect, dealing with the fact that, right, we're gonna go off, right? Like it says in the book of Jude, right? The angels, right, held under chains, right, which represents what? The flesh, represents these contracts that we're under, right, through Esau, right? We have to get, right, certain IDs, we have to do certain paperwork, right? But we're in the flesh, right? So Yahweh Shai, right, he came on the earth, he conquered that, right? Which is what we're doing now, right? Striving, you know, to preach and for the reward of the kingdom, right? But the point is, Yahweh Shai had to do that, right? But soon as he was delivered up, right, he had to be made manifest in the flesh, right? Because, right, when he was created, right, in the foundation of the world, in the beginning, right, he already had, right, the right hand, right, of the Lord, right? He already was the right hand of the Lord. But there had to be, right, he had to conquer the physical, right? He was already, right, spirit in the spirit, right? Like scriptures say, the author of life, right? But he had to come in the flesh. So when that happened, when he gave up the spirit, after he was delivered up, he was given dominion in both realms, right? So his purpose was complete, which is why John the Revelator saw the seals of the book, right, being taken away, right, which represents, right, Elijah coming back a final time to receive the understanding, right, and those that will receive it after them, right. There had to be that falling away, right? 70 A.D. There has to be a falling away this time as well, right? But that's the whole point, right? He was able to loose the seals, and then the another dispensation was given concerning prophecy, right? More things were forwarded, which is why John received a vision, right? So we had to fall away. Yahushua had to be delivered up, so he can in the spirit world, right, loose the seals, and then at its appointed time, we would wake up as a remnant, right? So that is that star from Jacob, right? Which was already done in the spirit, but it had to, right, in the physical realm, right, it had to be played out, just like Adam going off, just like us going off, falling away back then, right? But the elect are not going to fall away in this side, in these latter days. The 2/3 they will fall away, right? But the scriptures say what? I have engraven thee in the palm of my hand. That's talking about the elect, right? I believe that's in the book of Isaiah. Wizard Solomon says the righteous are in my hand, right? I believe that's 4 or 5, Salakia, between chapter 2 and 5. It's the first verse, right? So the elect are in the Lord and are in the Lord's hand, right? Which is Yahweh Shai, which is his right hand, right? He sits at his right, right? So it says, Waquam Shabbat, and will rise a tribe from Israel, right? That's going into, again, the remnant, right? Which is through Judah, right? Rabbi Abba Bivens. Judah had to wake up first, right? But really, that started through Yahushai because, and that goes back to King David because the Lord made a promise: I will leave a lamp within your seed forever, right? So that he may not destroy Judah, right? Which is why you got to know the history, right? Not just secular history, not just certain books, right? You got to know the historical, biblical accounts, right? The law, right? Where the prophecies, there's prophecies in the law as well, like I said, right? You got to understand, right, that there's various accounts and there's hidden information there, right? Hidden manna per se, right? And it's really simple, right? It's not really that hard because it says, "And will rise a tribe from Israel," right? Judah, Rabbi Abba Bivens, right? Judah waking up, the northern kingdom, two sticks being joined through the 12 tribes chart, right? All that goes hand in hand, right? Wama Chabtazah, Pa'athia, right? And will smite the regions of Moab, right? That word Pa'ah means a region, right? You can compare it with Panah, meaning a corner, right? Corner of a region. It's just another way to say, right? It could be a corner of a house, room, a corner of a region, right? A section of a community, right? But Pa'ah means a region, literally, right? Eastern region, right? So on and so forth, right? Mawa'ab, and it says Wakwar Kwar, right? And foundation, right? Called Benaiah Sheth, right? And the foundation of all the sons of Seth, right? So it says, and will smite, right, the corners of Moab, or the regions of Moab, and the foundations of all the sons of Seth. That goes back to the lineage through Adam. Like Second Ezra says, we all come from Seth, but the other nations, they are counted as spittle, right? It says in the book of Isaiah that what? The nations are counted as nothing and less than nothing, right? So that's what's gonna happen, right? Um, that star that comes from Jacob, right, through Yahushai, through the destruction, right, smite the corners of Moab, or the regions of Moab, meaning that doesn't just go into Moab, that goes into all the eastern region, right, all that eastern continent, right, and the foundations of all the sons of Seth, right, which where all the heathens come from, right, the various Shem, Ham, Japheth, right, which goes back to Adam, which goes through Seth, right? This is just talking about all the heathen, the destruction, right? Them being smitten. The book of Psalms says what? Arrows will be shot throughout the earth, right? The arrows are the missiles, right? The destruction, right? Numbers 24 and 18, Wahaya Adawam Yarushah, and will be Adam, and it will come to pass, Edom, they will possess Yarushah, and it will come to pass, right? Wahaya Yarushah, they will possess Seir, right? Shayar, because not only are we gonna have the Edomites in captivity, right? Hardcore slavery, right? We're gonna put you in chains, right? Really, the elite, because a lot of you aren't gonna make it. If you're in America Babylon the Great, you're gonna be disintegrated. If you're not 1/3 of the children of Israel, right? But those that remain from World War III, right? Like it says in the Book of Psalms, to put their chains in their nobles in chains, right? That's what it's talking about, we're gonna possess that part of Edom, and then in 1,000 years we're gonna have to breed to bring all Edom back and all the other nations back, so we can put them in hardcore slavery for 1,000 years. Then we're gonna burn. We're gonna put them in Edomites in a pile, burn them up. Um, and we're gonna possess Seir, meaning we're gonna possess their land, right? In the in the east, right? What was originally going to be the land of Edom is going to be ours, right? Really, everything is going to be ours, but that's what it's talking about. Not only are we going to possess the Edomites, right? We're going to have their land, right? Or Salakia, that means gates. But we're still, I mean, there's still a precept on that. I believe that's, let's get that real quick. Salakia, I'm getting excited. Which is Salakia, bear with me. Let's see. Damn, where the hell was it? What is it? Amos chapter 9 and 12. That they may possess the remnant of Edom and of all the heathen which are called by my name, saith the Lord that doeth this, right? So that's talking about not Edom itself, that's talking about their land, right? So it says Ya Rasha Shayar Ayab they will possess the gate of their enemies, meaning we're going to possess you other heathens as well. We're going to put you in iron chains, put chains around your necks, your wife's neck, your daughter's neck, your little boy's neck, right? Wa Yasha'Allah, right? And Israel will be made mighty, right? Aisha Chayal, meaning Chayal means mighty, right? Because we're going to receive spiritual power, right? Wayarad Ma Yaiquab, and he will come down from Jacob, right? That's Yahushai. Waha Abayad, and he will destroy the survivor from the city. Sharyad Ma'ayar, right? That's talking about Yahushai descending from the third heaven, the fourth dimension, right? With the chariots, right? To destroy the survivors from the city. That's talking about the whole earth, right? That's poetic for those that survive Armageddon, right? Because as Yahushai in Isaiah chapter 19, as he goes into Egypt, right, you're gonna have the missiles, right? You're gonna have Yahushai. You're gonna have the missiles heading to America, Babylon the Great. The chariots they're gonna shoot lasers. They're gonna cut some of the 2/3 in half. Some of you heathens, you're gonna be running and you're just gonna be cut in half. You know, you might have half your brain coming out of your skull. You know, and you know, it might be sliced in half, right? Whatever the case may be, that's gonna happen, and then the missiles are gonna hit, right? And then World War III is gonna kick off, right? But that's why it says he will come down from Jacob, right? Literally, he's going to descend from the heavens, right? Destroy those that remain in the city, right? Not a city, but the cities of the earth, the localities of the earth, right? Wayera'a ata Imlak, and he saw Amalek to Amalek, and he lifted up a proverb, Wayasha'a Mashalwa, Waya Amar, and he said, Ra'a Shayath, meaning the first, right, or the head of the nations, Gawayim, was Amalek, because that's what it really means, right? The head to the nations, right? The first, as in the chiefest of the nations, right? Is Amalek, Imlak, and afterwards, Wa Acharyathwa, Adya, even he will perish, Abad, right? So that goes back to verse. Let's get that real quick. Salakia. Verse 7, right? You can precept that with verse 7. So let's see. You should perish forever. Verse 21. Wayera'a ata ha na kwayanya, right? Meaning, and he saw to the Kenites, right? Wayasha'a, and he lifted up a proverb, Mashalwa. Salakia. Waya Amar, and he said, Ayatan, right? Perpetually have been your dwelling places. Mashab Ka, because that word Ayatan, it means perpetualness, right? Continuous, right? And he said, continue perpetually were your dwelling places. Wa Shayam, and placed upon a flinty rock, right? Basalai, right? Which means flinty rock, right? Has been your nest, Kwan Ka, because that word Kwan means nest, right? And again, this is talking about Esau, right? Because this goes back to Cain, right? Because you got to keep in mind that what verse was it? Verse 17, right? There's a reason why this precept, this verse went all the way back, mentioned Cain, right? Because, right, there's a reason why Agag was mentioned, right? Which was an Amalekite king, right? These are what you call hints, right? And then it mentions Edom, right? It's not a coincidence, right? This is going right back and forth in time, right? Just like the book of Revelations, you can't just read it thinking it's talking about just one event or one time frame, right? And now, right, it mentions Amalek again, verse 20, right? And then it says the Kenites, right? Verse 22 says who? Cain, right? So this is talking about regeneration, reincarnation, right? Just like the verse when the Balak said, or Salakia Balaam, he said, I will see them and not now, right? Meaning, and not this time, right? So you got to be spiritual, right? And judge spiritual things, right? But that precept is talking about incarnation as well, right? Let's get that real quick. Let's see. Salakia, let's get that real quick. Verse 17, right? I will see them and not now. I will search them out and not near in the way, right? That means, right, Balak is here today, right? And he's gonna see the destruction, right? He's gonna actually see, right, the return of Yahweh Shai, right? He's gonna survive in order to see that happen, right? Um, right, because, right, some people will die before that. I mean, it's obvious. The Lord can't have all spirits down here at once, right? So when the scriptures say all eyes will see him, it doesn't mean, right? Oh, the Lord has to, you know, has to raise up. Everyone has to be alive at this time, right? To see Yahweh Shai, because the scriptures say all eyes will see him. No, that's not what it's talking about. It's saying those that are alive, they're gonna see Yahweh Shai return, right? But some people will die before that, right? So you're not gonna die a year before Yahweh Shai comes back, and then he comes back, and then well, the scriptures says that all eyes will see him, right? That's not what it's talking about, right? The Lord isn't gonna bring you back a year later, right, to see Yahweh Shai return, and right, that's not what it means, right? Verse 21, Wayera'a atha ha-kwayanaya, and he saw to the Kenites, and he lifted up a proverb, and he said, perpetually have been your dwelling places, and have been placed upon a rock, right? Because Cain, right, which is Esau, which is so-called white man, which is the wicked, right, which is a murderer, he's a man stealer, all that, right? Even the Lord gave him that, right? He got his reward. He got his dominion, right? He got exactly what Isaac said he would have, right? Which was Yahweh Shai, right? And the reincarnated, right? So the Most High already ordained all this to happen. Really, Esau did receive the firstborn. He received his portion, right? Throughout time, right? He may have been subjugated, right, certain times, but as a whole, right, he had a good run. I mean, they conquered the Japhites, they took on their customs, then they started, right, they were called Macedonians, then they called themselves Greeks, Romans, then they conquered, right, they Hellenized the known world, right? Bravo, right? You made nuclear technology, you made computers, chips, uh, vehicles. You modernize vehicles, right? But that technology is really nothing, right? A smartphone, I mean, a TV, compared to what the Lord has, it's really, right. You can't. It's beyond what a human mind can think of, right? But the point is that, right, the Lord made sure you had your portion, so you had it. And what did you do? You did not deal justly, so you're gonna be destroyed. Simple as that. But you had a good run, so all praises, right? The Lord gave, really, the firstborn, like the scriptures say, right? The firstborn receives his due portion, right? But now it's our turn is coming, right? Simple as that. You were able to rule, kill, steal, And the Lord did that, right? Bravo. And but time's up. I mean, you have to deal with reality, right? If you go in someone's house and you kill them, right? You take something that doesn't belong to you, you're gonna pay, right? Karma, right? Which is the will of God, right? You can't just you can't you know you can't you can't buy redemption. Redemption has to be according to God. It has to be by blood, right? And that is what the Lord is going to do, right? He's going to destroy you with your own sword. You're going to destroy yourself with your own sword, right? So this is why it says, perpetually have been your dwelling places. The Lord established Cain, which was the wicked. The Lord established Esau, which is the wicked. They call their lands by their name, right? They're not in trouble as other men, right? He placed you upon a rock, right? Mount Petra, right? Which was literally you carved, right? Roman like uh um designs on your on these mountains, right? In the Caucasus, right? If you look at Petra, right, all that looks like Roman architecture, right? You made your houses in rocks, and you do that today. You make large cities, right? You put concrete everywhere, right? Because you're a beast. You like being on a rock. That is, you know, the Lord programmed that in your head, right? So the rock is your nest, meaning your high places, your buildings, right? Petra, Roman architecture, huge coliseums, right? That looks like a giant. You look at those coliseums; they look like giant nests, right? So this, right? Kaya Yahaya, because if to be uh because if or Salakia, because lo it will come to pass uh will be consumed Cain, right? Kaya meaning if or lo, right? That's another word for behold. Because lo, it will come to pass, uh Cain will be consumed. La Bayar, Kwayan, right? Adma, even uh um what does it say? Even Adama, even how, right? Because that word ma means what or how, which how, I mean, this is part of Esau's witchcraft, right? Because how and what is basically the same thing. What are you doing? How are you doing? What the hell does how mean anyways? How, how what? You mean what, right? So even how Asher, or Assyria, Ashawar, right? That's talking about all all your nations in the eastern region, right? Really, Asher, Assyria, which is Assyria, that's talking about those regions in ancient Mesopotamia, right? The which are the so-called Arabs, right? That's really a word to say, right? Arabs, because Mesopotamia, the sons of Shem had 5 sons, right? Um, Aram, Lud, Arphaxad. um, and two other sons, right? But those nations are what you call Arabs, right? Oh yeah, Elam. There was one more, but I forgot. Um, right? Which Elam, they're the East Indians, right? Aram and Lud. These are just the people that dwelt in Mesopotamia, which is places like Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, right? Basically, they're Arabs, right? Which really goes back to the five sons of Shem, right? Ishmael, he's among them, but they're not all Ishmaelites. A lot of camps they say, "Oh, that's an Ishmaelite." You don't know that. It could be one of those Semitic tribes, right? Because Abraham dwelt. Abraham was called an Assyrian because he dwelt in, which is called Assyria, Ashawar, right? Which is certain, like Deuteronomy 26. It said Aramia, which is an Aramean, right? Because this goes back to those sons of Shem, right? Where they were stargazers, prognosticators, all that, right? That is what you see today, right? So it says even how Assyria uh, um um let's see will take thee captive, right? Because, right, basically in the kingdom of heaven, right, Esau is gonna get it the worst. We're gonna sell, the scriptures say that what? We're gonna sell them to the Sabians, right? Which are the modern day they're like uh um they're Hamites, right? And that's what's gonna happen in the kingdom of heaven, right? Basically, Esau is gonna be scattered. We're gonna sell them, as slaves to the heathens, right? They're gonna get their get back too, right? So they're gonna be the lowest, right? They're the highest now. They're gonna be the lowest, but the nations themselves. They're gonna be, right. For example, the kingdom of heaven, 1,000 years. All the nations are gonna be in hardcore captivity. But after the kingdom of heaven, right? Um, right. How do you say it? The Lord is not going to destroy Esau's spirit, right? Esau, when he gets burned up, right? He's there's not going to be that line is not going to be anymore. But just like Cain, right, came back as Esau, he's going to come back as a different line. We don't know how it's going to happen, but he might come back as the Lord just might put his spirit among all these other nations. So he might, there might be a spirit of an Edomite, born in this nation and in this nation after the 1,000 years, right? So he's going to come back on earth. The Lord is not going to destroy, or he might just destroy Esau's soul, you know? I mean, we don't know. We can only prophesy in part. But this, to me, it alludes to the fact that, right, these other nations, right, are going to have Esau in the very low, or his when his spirit after the 1,000 years, right? Because all the nations are going to go back to their own land. Basically, he's going to be the lowest, right? His spirit, when it returns to the earth, however it does, right? Or you might have something happen like like Israel. Jacob and Israel were born, right? They were born through a man and then they became a nation, right? The Lord can do that, right? The Lord's hand is not cut short that he can't make it happen, right? So, right, after the 1,000 years, the Lord might send Esau's spirit through one man, right? And then that nation is might be a new nation within amongst the other nations. Or they might just be scattered among all the other nations and they'll just be the lowest, right? Uh in the kingdom of heaven. But they're not gonna come back as Edomites. They're gonna be come back as maybe a Cushite, here and there, Moabite, right? But they're gonna be the lowest in those nations, right? If you can understand, it's gonna have it's gonna have the Edomite spirit, right? Which is there's no such thing as an Edomite spirit, right? Just like um there isn't the sons of God in Genesis 6 and 4 were called sons of God because they were the spirits of the righteous. Then they came back as Israel, right? Cain was the wicked, but he was Cain, right? But he came back as Esau. So there's no name to an actual spirit, right? Not that I'm trying to get too deep, but there's no such thing as an Edomite spirit, right? Or Cain, spirit of Cain, right? When we talk about these type of things, right? But this alludes because this is obviously talking about reincarnation, right? So it has to be talking about something that's going to happen, right, after the destruction, right? But anyways, Wayasha'ah Mashalwa, and he lifted up a proverb, and he said, right, Waya Amar Awaya, meaning woe, who shall live, Maya Yahaya, um, who shall live when these things should be done, right? Because that word ma, meaning of, masham, means to place, right? Of placing to, al, that doesn't mean God, it means alha, like these things, right? So it says, and he lifted up a proverb and he said, woe, who shall live when these things be placed, as in when these things be so, right? Wa tazayim mayad kathayim, ships from the side of Kittim, right? Wa ainawa ashawar, and they will afflict at Assyria, right? It says Asher, right? But that's really denoting the same thing, like I said. And what is this talking about? Ships coming from Kittim. This is talking about Esau rising again as the Greeks, right? Rising, right? When I say again, right? Because the Edomites were subjugated under King David. So they had to rise, right? Another time. They had three different dominions, right? The former, right? Esau, right? In the ancient times. Then you had the Romans, and then the modern times, right? So we had a rulership, right? Notable rulerships, right? So it says, and ships from the side of Kittim, right? That's what happened, right? Macedonia, right? Alexander the Great went through Kittim. That is an actual place, right? He went through the lower islands that lead to these lands, right? Um, which is modern day, right? Persia, right? Turkey, Iran, right? That's what it means when he says, and he shall afflict Assyria, right? Wa Ainawa Ibar and will afflict Eber, right? Because that's talking about, right, these lines that come from Eber, which is us, right? Because we were there as well, right? We were there, and as well as all the sons, because Eber had sons, right? Eber had children. Noah had children that weren't mentioned, right? Like it says in Book of Genesis, right? He had many sons, right? But really, this is talking about, right, the children of Israel, right? Because when Esau, when he established, right, his reign through the Greeks, Hellenized the known world, Antiochus Epiphanes persecuted the Jews, then the Romans, right, ruled and made Judea, right, a vassal state, right? So they would afflict Assyria, they would afflict Iber, right? Ibar, right? Meaning the children of Eber, right? Wagam, Hawa, and even he, right? Adya, even he will perish. Abad, right? So yeah, that's just going into Esau's history, right? And you can look that up. I'm not going to go through all that, but right, this is talking about the rise, same like the book of Nahum, right? It talks about the rise of Esau, right? Chapter 2, chapter 3, right? Yeah, it's talking about ancient Nineveh, right? But this is Nineveh because Esau took on, right, not just the customs of these ancient nations, right, but also their architecture, right, balling it up into one whole creation, which he claimed he takes credit for, right? Just like he takes credit when Jake makes inventions, right? He's a thief, right? He's taking credit for everything, right? Because he's a liar and a bastard, right? Um, verse 25, Wayequam Balaam Wayelakah, and he rose Balaam, and he went, and he returned Wayeshab La Maquamwa to his place, Wagam Balak, and even Balak he Halakah, he went to his way, La Darakwa, right? So if you have spiritual eyes, you understand what these things mean, right? Now, before I close up, I'm going to go ahead and go over some of these words, right? Let's start with, let's see. Wait, how the hell did I get that? Let me see. Damn, where the hell did I get that from? Oh yeah, right. So let's go back. Let's see. Where is it? Where it says they will drip, or he will drip waters from his buckets and his seed. Salakia, right? They will drip water from their buckets and their seeds will be in many waters, right? That word zal, right, means something that drips, right? But then you have irap, right, which I believe also means neck, right, and back as well, right? Um, Rayap, right, which is the words or the letters are interchanged. Irap, that just means to drop, right? So there's a difference, right? You read that in um, Deuteronomy 32, right, or 33, right? Um, Now we have Nazal, right? That means something that drips. Nazal, right? Which it says to flow, to run, fluids, poetically used of streams, right? Um, the Arabic says Nazal, to descend, right? I don't know how the hell you got that, but okay, buddy. Nazam, which is to bore, right? Um, I guess. Um, so yeah, that means, right, something that is dripping, right, in the sense of flowing water, right? A rap is more something dropping like dew, right, from the heavens, right? Nazal, to drip, shed by trickling, right? Let's see what else. So that word buckets, right? Dahlia, right? Which dal, it just means to hang down, right? It also means door or hinge, or dalath means book, right? So this is in a sense that, right, something that is hung down to get to retrieve water. I think I went over that before, right? Um, so that's the word for bucket. Um, let's see what else we can get. Salakia. We got damn, I don't know why the hell I closed that up. Oh well, I don't need that one. Right, so what I just closed up was the word ga'a, which just means proud, which is what agag is derived from, right? It just means, right, lofty or right, exalted, right? Which is what ga means, proud, lofty, exalted, right? And now we'll look at the various words for lion, right? You have lion, right? You have lioness, right? Which is labaya, which also means young lion, right? Araya, right? Let's look at that first. And you have kapyar, right? Which is another word, right? For young lion, right? In the sense that right, or cub, right? That actually means cub, because, right, the root word is kapar, right? Mean as in cover, to atone, right? Labaya, we mean in lioness, but it also means young lion, right? Could be male, female, right? The point is, it is a young lion because of the fact that, right, the male lion, right, which is, right, the chief hunter, right, Oriah, right. The reason why lioness is called Labaya, because the word, it's very simple, right? You just break it down as la meaning to, baya meaning to enter, right? Because what, the male lion, right, in wildlife, what they do, the male lion is always leading the pack, right? For example, he leads a pack, a lioness and a cub to their pasture, or a lioness and a young lion to their pasture, right? He's the one who's bringing them in, meaning they're going before him, right? and he's kind of just on guard, right, in case any prey comes nearby, right? So that just means, in a sense, to bring in, right? Because that's what the lion is doing, right? That's all it really means. So when you read labaya, right, it may mean lioness or young lion. For example, let's look at, and then we'll close up. Labaya, right? Slakia. Gawar Araya Yahawada, meaning a fearful lion, right, or fierce lion, is Judah. Matarap Benaiah Alayath, from tearing, um, my son, you have ascended up, right? Because that's what a lion does, right? It takes prey, right? And then it goes and it gets more prey, right? Which is why the scripture says that their children are oppressors, and that's what Judah does, right? Judah is the reason why he does all that wickedness is because really he's copying Esau, that hunter spirit, right? But this is just, it's talking about how Judah, the strength of Judah, right? Fierce lion is Judah, from tearing up the prey, you have ascended up, right? Karai, Rabatazah, meaning to stoop, right? To crouch, like a lion, Ka Araya, right? That's just talking about, how Judah, he's just, they're the best athletes, right? They're the best, they're the head tribe for a reason, because of their strength, because of their agility, right? Their prowess, their intelligence, right? This is why they have it the worst, right? This is why, right? When Judah is just he's a beast, right? But that's why he's the head. He's the head, right? So that's just talking about how Judah, like a lion, right? Waka Labaya, and like a young lion, who will raise him up, right? And that's Numbers. You read that in Numbers chapter 24, right? Because again, that's going into, right, the remnant, right, specifically the tribe of Judah, right, waking up, receiving the understanding, going out and teaching it, right? Simple as that. You can precept that with Malachi, Genesis 49, 9 and 10, right? I will send you Elijah the prophet, right? Which is why I said there's many other precepts that talk about that, right? Numbers 23 and 24, right? The people shall rise up as a great lion and lift himself up as a young lion, right? What is that? Numbers 23, right? I went over that. 24 and 9. So let's see. So I went through Numbers 24 and 9, right? So you see, that's talking about, okay, let's see, for lioness. Roaring like a lion, young lion. Right, so there's certain times where it's talking about a lioness, right? Like Ezekiel 19 and 2, right? But I'm not going to go over all that, right? Because we're already at the 2-hour mark, right? Kapyar, which means a cub, right? Because you do got to know the difference, right? In order to get the context, right, of the verse. Copiar, a young lion, already weaned and having begun to raven, right? Which sometimes a blue letter just says what they want to say, right? Um, let's see. Ezekiel 19, 2 and 3. Young lion just means cub, right? Ariah, well, that one's simple. It just means lion, right? And then you have old lion, which is layash, right? Um, which is how you say old man. I believe it's shayaba. Old man, right? Which that word yasha just means to be, right? Or right. So la yash, it just means to make, right? As in, just mean the life is lived out, right? So it's just an right. It's an it's a elder older lion, right? It's just a simple way to say old lion. And I'm not going to look that up. You can look that up on your own. So we ran into the word sapak, right? Just means to slap, to clap. And then you have Salakia. And I'll go ahead and close out. Quar, right? And the foundation of Seth, right? And destroy the foundation of Seth, right? That word is quai, Salakia, quar, right? Which is not how you actually say foundation, right? Salakia, bear with me. I know it's a lot, going into various words, especially for this chapter, right? Which is why I try to make the other chapters quick, right? Because unless I have to go more in depth, right, I'm not going to go over every single word over and over, right? Let's see. No, that's not what I was looking for. What is it? Seth. Right? Numbers 24:17. Waquar call Benaiah Shath, right? Because the Lord said, right, through Balaam, and will smite the regions of Moab and the foundation of all the sons of Seth, right? So quar, right, meaning foundation, but that's not the actual word for foundation. It is actually Salakia Yasad, right? Or sometimes you might read it as Sawad, right? So let's look at that word, right? Yasad, monosyllabic root, sad, Sanskrit, sit, Latin, sidir, right? Metaphorically, to constitute, to establish, right? To establish, found, fix. The Arabic says wasad, pillow. That's funny. You sad? yasad. Um, or um, so pillow, right? Just means pillow in the Arabic, but this is the actual word for foundation, right? Um, so that word quar, right? The root is quar, meaning to dig, right? But there's more to it, right? Because we read previously, right? Quai, right? Which is that word requai shows up within that word, which means to broaden, right? So that word quai, right, is in Numbers 5 and 17, right? Which it says, and the priest shall take water in an earthen vessel, and of the dust that is in the floor of the tabernacle, the priest shall take and put it into the water, right? So when it says floor, tabernacle, quai, right, it's a derivative of quar, meaning to dig. Requai means to broaden, right, or to make broad, right? As in, right, right, when you make a foundation before you actually lay the foundation, which is to Esau is the concrete. First, you have to broaden the dirt, right? Dig through it, and then lay the concrete foundation, right? Which first you got to put in rebar, etc., right? Or plumbing, whatever the case may be, right? But this actually means, right, floor, right? Which you could use it in a general sense for ground, right? Quarquai, or it could be foundation in the sense that, right, it's something spread out, right? Like a dirt foundation, right? Yasad would be more like to describe a concrete foundation, something that is fixed, because it's fixed in place, because the concrete dries and it can no longer be changed by the weather, right? If it rains, right, the concrete is just gonna, right, it's not gonna it's not gonna do away with that foundation like a dirt foundation, right? So quarquai can be used in the sense of, right, floor in general, but if you want to apply it to something to actually today, would be in the sense of a dirt foundation, right? Quarquai, right, which just means dig, to spread out, right? Which just means floor, right? Then you have quarquar, right? Which is foundation, but it's a non-literal sense, non-literal way to say foundation. Yasad is really the actual word for foundation, but quarquar, right? Which is what you read here, Numbers 24, 7, not 17. Yeah, 17, quarquar, right? Just means, right? Um, um, uh, uh, right? It means foundation, but that's not the actual word, right? It just means dug out, something dug out, right? Which is what the Lord did, right? He created Adam, and then through Adam, right? Through his seed, he like when you carve a tree, what do? You take pieces of it and form the vessel, right? If you're forming, right, an image, you carve pieces of it, right? But the image itself is still, right, part of that original wood. What you carved out of it, right, is what came from that image. Like this, in the sense that this is how the Lord separated, right, the nations, starting with Adam, right, which is, right, the image of man, right, multiplying upon earth, right, and the flakes are just these other nations, right. Um, so yeah, it just means foundation, but that's not the actual word. It can be it can be interpreted as something else as well, right? Like I just did, right? but you will know that, right, by context what it's talking about, right? Um, so then you have Anaya, right? Deuteronomy 28:68. I will send you back into Egypt on ships, right? Anaya, right? Which is Anaya, Anaya, or Anayaha, like you read it in Deuteronomy 28:68, right? Which actually means ship, right? Which really it's interpreted as, right? You can compare it with the word ana, right? Anaha, meaning when, right? Because what ships do, right? They track their voyage, right, to see when they will land, right? And it's really simple, right? The Hebrew is very comprehensive, right? Which is why when you see certain comparisons, like here in the blue letter, right? You might see some Syriac, you might see some Arabic. Sometimes it'll make sense, but there's times when you'll see something bugged out, which um, uh, for example, right, for fleet or ship, the Arabic says uh, awana, meaning a vessel, right? Because that's what a ship is. It's a vessel, right? Um, um, and it says anayat, right? I guess that's another way to say it. Anai or Salakia. Nin, nin, um, wa, wananai, right? Or is that looks like a punctuation mark. Uh, ninai, right? Um, it says, the Arabic says, tabanath, one stalk or straw, right? Uh, taban, straw, right? Um, which goes back to the Hebrew. It just means to build, right? You read about that in Exodus, right? It doesn't actually mean straw, right? It just means, and it can be straw, but it's an item you use to build, right? Brick, mortar, whatever the case may be, right? So yeah, you have Anaya, right? But as we read in Numbers, right? What we read was Tazayath, right? Which is more so a non-literal way to say ship, right? For example, tazaya, right? Meaning dwellers in the desert, which goes back to my next word, right? Desert dweller, wild beast, right? Um, Nomad, wild beast. You see, I clicked on the blue letter definition, right? Salakia. Or Salakia, I just searched desert, right? Because in certain parts of the law, you will read, right? It just means a parched land, right? Tazaya, right? Strong's H6723, right? And you read that there's a precept in Slovakia. Let me go back. Or I may have read it in Job. Yeah, I probably did read it in Job. Let's see. Uh Job 24:19. Drought and heat consume the snow waters. That's not what I was looking for. Job 30:3. For want and famine they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness in former time, desolate and waste. Right. Psalm 63:1. O God, thou art my God. Early will I seek thee. My soul thirsteth for thee. My flesh longeth for thee in a dry and thirsty place. Right. As in a parched land. Right. Used to describe, right, a desert, wilderness, dry places. Psalms 105:41. Right. So that denotes, right, in a sense, right, a place of drought, right, which you'll read about it, right, Job, Psalms, and various other areas, right, which is why, let me see, get that for ship, Tazayah, right, meaning dryness, a dry region. The Arabic says Tazawayath, small vessel, right? Tazayah, ship, right? Because what is a ship, right? Is a vessel that is meant to keep dry, right? In certain parts of its building in order to float on the sea, right? You have to keep the wood. If it was right, if the wood was able to get wet, right, the ship would sink, right? So this isn't the actual word for ship. It goes back to the word, right, parched or dried, right, as in a parched land, right? You could be dried of thirst, right? Another example, right? You have the word tazawam, meaning to fast, right? Which you see that same word, right? Tazawam, to cover the mouth, to fast, right? To abstain from food. Because what do you do when you fast, right? Your mouth gets dry, right? So that's just what it means, right? Um, so you see, these words have something in common, right? Which is how you understand, right, certain things like what is the word for male lion, right? You also have to kind of do a little bit of interpretation of the Hebrew of the letters themselves, right? But you can use the precepts, right? And if you actually study the text, you're gonna know, right, that these things correlate, right? So tazawam, right, to fast, right? The root taziyah, right, meaning dry or parched, which is where you get the word for thirst, which is tazama, right? Taza, right, or taziyah, right, to be dry or parched, right? Uh, uh, um, uh, right, which it sounds similar, right? So tazama, thirst, fast, tazawam, taziyath, ship, but the actual word for ship is anaya, right? Um, so yeah, right. But I think the video is long enough. So it's Brother Yatazadak, Euro Israel, right? This was Numbers chapter 24, going into the Hebrew, right? This Brother Yatazadak, or Salakia, Lord willing, you were edified, giving all honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahushai, Ba'ashim, Rakakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Kwam Yasha Allah, Abad Babal, Shalom.